Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Tranaya Karuna Gana Ganatam Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Tranaya Karuna Gana Ganatam Prapta Sakalyana Gunana Vasya Bande Gurashi Charanara Vrindam Gunana Vasya Bande Gurashi Charanara Bande Gurashi Charanara Vrindam Bande Gurashi Charanara Vrindam Mahaprabhu ki Tana Nitya Gita Vaditra Madhyam Manasura Sena Mahaprabhu Romanchakam Pasru Taranga Baju Bande Gurashi Charanara Vrindam Shri Vigrahara Dana Nityanana Shringaratanama Niramajanado Shri Vigrahara Juktasya Bhaktamsa Niyunjatopi Bande Gurashi Charanara Vrindam Chaturvidhashi Bhagavat Prasado Swatana Truptam Hari Bhakta Shanga Chaturvidhashi Bhagavat Prasada Swatana Truptam Kridvaiva Truptim Bhajato Shadeva Bande Gurashi Charanara Vrindam Shiradikama Tavayarapara Madhurya Leela Gunarupa Namna Shiradikama Madhurya Leela Pratikshana Swa Dhanalalupasya Bande Gurashi Charanara Vrindam Ne kunjayono Ratike Lisidhai Jajali Virjokti Apekshaniya Ne kunjayono Ratike Lisidhai Jajali Virjokti Tatrati Daksha Ativalabhasya Bande Gurashi Charanara Vrindam Bande Gurashi Sakchadharidena Shamastashrashre Ruktastatthava Vyataiva Sadhavi Sakchadharidena Shashre Kintu Praborja Priyaeva Tasya Vande Gurashi Charanaravrindam Priyaeva Tasya Vande Gurashi Yasya Prasada Bhagavat Prasada Yasya Prasadam Nagati Kutapi Yasya Prasadam Bhagavat Prasadam Yasya Prasadam Nagati Kutapi Jayam Stubam Tasya Yasatrin Sandhyam Vande Gurashi Charanaravrindam Dhyayam Stuvam Tasya Yasatrin Sandhyam Vande Gurashi Charanaravrindam Vande Gurashi Charanaravrindam Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitina Mine Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namaste Sarasvate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunavadi Pachatare Shatarine Namaste Sarasvate Deve Gauravani Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hariyaraye Namah, Krishna Jadavaye Namah, Jadavaye Madhavaya Keshavaya Namah, Gopal Govindaram Shri Madhusudan, Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohan, Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Sita, Hare Guru Vaishnava Bhagavata Gita, Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raguna, Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasaraguna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Shri Shri Radha Nila Madhav, Radha Nila Madhav Radhe, Jaya Jagannath, Jaya Baladeva, Jayo Subhadrama, Jayo Sudarshan Chakra. Jaya Sitaram, Jayo Sitaram, Sitaram, Jayo Lakshman Hanuman. Nittai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nittai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nittai Gaura Pramanande, Haribo. Jai Vishnupada Paramansa Prabhajaka Charisi Saraswati. His divine grace, Abhochanavina Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. ISKCON Pratishta Viviti Samstapaka Char Vaishnava Siromani, Parit Pavana Srila Prabhupada Ji Maharaj ki jai. Shri Gaurya Guru Varga Apatitu Udhar ki jai. Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhattara Gunath Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Guna Satgoswami Swami Prabhu ki jai. Nama Acharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ji ki jai. Jayananta Kuri Vaishnavrinda ki jai. प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद की जय। जय परम दयाल श्री नित्यानंद प्रभु की जय। जय प्रेम नाम संकीर्तन एक जनक प्रेम पुरुषोत्तम श्री सच्चिदानंद स्मरण गौरंग श्री चैतन्य महाप्रभु गौर हरि महावरनाय अवतार की जय। गोलोकेर प्रमधान हरिनाम संकीर्तन जय की जय। Yuga Dharma Hare Krishna Mahamantra ki jai. Brihat Nidanga Transcendental Book Distribution Seva ki jai. Shri Radha Krishna Gopagopina Radha Kund Samakund Giriraj Gobodhan ki jai. Shri Brajabim Vrindavan Mathur Dham ki jai. The Lordship Shri Radha Nilamadhava ki jai. Shri Maya Purnavadip Ekachakra Dham ki jai. Paramakaruna Shri Gaur Nitai ki jai. श्री पुरुषोत्तम क्षेत्र जगन्नाथ पुरी धाम की जय। श्री जगन्नाथ स्वामी बलदेव प्रभु श्रीमती सुभद्रा देवी सुदर्शन चक्र भगवान की जय। भक्ति सर्व विघ्न विनाशना करुण सिंह भगवान की जय। जय गंगा माय जमुना माय की जय। तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी भक्ति देवी की जय। श्रीमती राधा रानी की समवेत भक्त वृंद की निताय गौरी प्रमानंदे। All glories to somebody bodies. All glories to somebody bodies. All glories to somebody bodies. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Jai. Namaste Narasingaya. Namaste Narasingaya. Hiranakashipu Vaksha Hiranakashipu Vaksha Silatankanaka Naye Jaya Silatankanaka Naye Ito Nisingo Parato Nisingo Ito nisingo parato nisinga Jato jato jamita to nisinga Bair nisingo budaye nisinga Bair nisingo budaye nisinga Narasimha Madhimi Sharanam Prapade Tabakara Kamala Bare Naka Arabhuta Singha Dalita Hiranyakasipo Tanabringa Kesavadita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Re Jai Jagadisha Re Jai Jagadisha Re Tabakara Kamala Bare Naka Arabhuta Singha Dalita Hiranyakasipo Tanabringa Kesavadita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Re Jai Jagadisha Re Jai Jagadisha Re Kesavadita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Re Jai Jagadisha Re Jai Jagadisha Re Kesavadita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Re Jai Jagadisha Re Jai Jagadisha Re Jayo Nishinga Re Jayo Nishinga Re Nishinga Re Jayo Nishinga Re Jayo Narahari Jayo Narahari Narahari Jayo Narahari Jayo Lakshmi Narasingha Jayo Lakshmi Narasingha Jayo Lakshmi Narasingha Jayo Lakshmi Narasingha Jaya Bhakta Pralanara Jaya Bhakta Jaya Pralanara Nita Gora Haribo 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 Nita Gora Haribo Nita Gora Premanande Jai Shri Bhakti Kada Sarvigna Kar Singh Bhagwan Ki Jai Bhakta Shrestha Prahlad Maharaj Ki Jai Nitai Gaurari Premanande Hari Hari Bo Shri Vrindai Tulasi Devai Priyaye Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satavataye Namo Namaha Vrindai Tulasi Devai Priyaye Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satavataye Namo Namaha Vrindaya Tulasi Devai Priyaya Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satavataye Namo Namaha Jai Shrimati Tulasi Maharani Vrindadevi ki Jai Namo Namo Tulasi Krishna Priyasi Namo Namo Tulasi Krishna Priyasi Namo Namo Tulasi Krishna Priyasi Namo Namo Tulasi Krishna Radha Krishna Seva Tava Hey Yogi Lasi Radha Krishna Seva Tava Hey Tomara Sharanala Tarabancha Pona Kripa Kare Karatare Vrindavana Tumi kripa kari karatare Vrindavana vasi Morayo bhila Vilas kunye Yoba Morai Nayane Ribho Sada Jugala Ruparasi Amen Nivedana dhara sakirano gata kora Sevayadi koro diye koro nidadasi Krishna das se koi hey enamorado. Shri Radha Govinda preme sada basi. Shri Radha Govinda preme sada basi. Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namaha. Janikani Sapapani Brahma Tarikani Sa Tanitani Prana Santi Pradachina Pare Pare. Janikani Sapapani Brahma Tarikani Sa Tanitani Prana Santi Pradachina Pare Pare. Yani Kanisha Papani Brahma Hatyadi Kanisha Tani Tani Pranasanti Pradachina Pare Pare. Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Vrinda Devi. Nittai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nittai Gaura Haribo. Shrimati Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi ki jai. Shri Vrinda Tulsi Bai Priya Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Sattavataye Namo Namaha. Vrindai Tulasi Bai Priya Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Sattavataye Namo Namaha. वृंदाय तुलसी देवाय प्रियाय केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति देवी सत्यवताय नमः। जय श्रीमती तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी की जय। Oh Tulasi, beloved Krishna, I bow before you again and again. My desire to obtain the service of Shri Radha and Krishna. Whoever takes shelter of his wishes fulfilled, bestow your mercy upon him, you make him resident of Vrindavan. My desire that you grant me residence and pleasure groves of Sri Vrindavan Dham. Thus within my vision I will always behold beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me a follower carrying the arms of Raj. Please give me the privilege of devotional service and make me your own maid servant. This very fallen and lonely servant Krishna, please. May I always swim in love with Shri Radha and Govinda. Shrimati Tulasi Maharani, Vrinda Devi ki jai. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Shri Kyastakam ki jai. Cheto Darpanam Bhavamala Vangivapanam Shri Akariva Chandrika Vitaranam Vidya Vadu Jivanam Anandam Buddhivardhanam Padiparam Purnamrita Swadanam Sarvatmasnam Param Param Vijayati Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakari Baudha Nija Sarva Shaktis Tatrar Pita Niyamita Shmarane Nakala Etadrisita Vakripaya Bhagavan Mamapi Durdaivam Idrishamiyajani Nanuraga Trinadapi Swanichena Tarorapi Saishnuna Amani Namanadina Kirtaniya Sada Hari Na Dhanam Na Janam Na Sundarim Kavitam Va Jagarisha Kamaye Mama Janmani Janmanishwari Bhavatar Bhakti Rahaitu Kitwai Ainandatanu Jakinkaram Paritamam Vishame Bhavambudo Kripaya Tavapada Pankaja Sthita Dhuli Sadrisham Vichintaya Nayanam Galarashru Dharaya Vadanam Gadgadarudaya Gira Pulakarin Chitam Bapukada Tavanama Grahane Bhavisati Juga Itam Nimishena Chakrisha Prabhusa Itam Shunya Itam Jagata Sarvam Govinda Virahe Name Aslishabapa Daratam Pinashtumam Adarshnar Marmahatam Karotuva Jatata Thava Vidadhatu Lampato Matpranatastu Saivana Para Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shri Kyastakam ki jai. Namo Mahavarannaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Korate She Namaha. Glory to the Shri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan moment is the prime benediction for humanity at large, because it spreads the rays of the benediction mode. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we're always anxious. O my Lord, Your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings. And thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govind. In these transcendental names, you have invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness, you enable us to easily approach you by your holy name. But I'm so unfortunate I have no attraction for them. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself Lord and stroll in the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer respect to others. In such state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless divorce from service, birth after birth. O son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor, yet somehow or other I have fallen in this ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. O my Lord, but will my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? Or will my voice choke up? And will the hairs of my body stand on end at the recitation of your name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I feel all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he should remain so, even if he handles me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord unconditionally. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Shri Krastakam Ki Jai. Om Mahamanana Krishna Prema Krishna Chaitanya. There are 10 offenses in the matter of chanting the holy name of the Lord that should be avoided. They are as follows. 1. To blaspheme the devotees who dedicate their life for propagating the holy name of the Lord. 2. To consider names of the demigods, the Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma, to be equal to or independent of the name of Lord Vishnu. 3. To disobey the orders of the spiritual master. 4. To blaspheme the Vedic literature or literatures and pursuits of Vedic version. 5. To consider the glories of chanting Hare Krishna to be imagination. 6. To give some interpretation to the holy name of the Lord. 7. To commit sinful activities in the strength of chanting the holy name of the Lord. 8. To consider the chanting of Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic activities which are often Vedas as fruitive activity karma kanda. 9. To instruct the fearless person about the glories of the holy name. And 10. To not have complete faith in chanting the holy names and to maintain material attachments even after understanding some instructions on this matter. It also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be Vaishnava must carefully guard against 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success. Krishna Prema. Now let us offer our most humble obeisances unto all the Vaishnavas, devotees of the Lord. They are just like desired trees, they can fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. Devancha Kalpatarvyacha Kripa Sindhu Devacha Paritanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha.
Vaishnava Thakur Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutali Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Tinamini Namaste Saraswati Devi Guruvani Pacharni Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskatya Siddhani. Shri Guru Pranama prayers Ki Jai. Om Aganya Timirandasya Yananjana Salakaya Chaksurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manubhistam Sapitam Yena Bhutali Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jataha Pachikamalan Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahaguna Ragunatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Saidvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahaguna Lalita Shri Vishaka Nivitam Sa Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutali Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namini Namaste Saraswati Deve Guruvani Pucharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskatya Desatarine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Tinamini Shiva Savani Devi Daitaya Kripabdaye Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Dayane Prabhave Namaha Madhur Ujjvala Premadya Shri Rupanuga Bhaktida Shri Gora Karuna Shakti Vigrahaya Namostute Namaste Gauravani Shri Murtaye Dinatarine Rupanuga Virudapa Apasiddhanta Dvantaharine Namo Gora Kishoraya Shakshadvaraya Murtaye Vipralamba Rasambode Padambu Jayate Namaha Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Sachitanandanamine Gora Shakti Sarupaya Rupanuga Varayate Gora Vir Baba Bhumestvam Nirdesta Sajjana Priya Vaishnava Sarvabhaumashri Jagannathayate Namaha Vanchakalpaturabhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patittanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Premapadayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Guru Chuse Namaha Panchatatvatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakam Namami Bhakta Saktikam Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Jayatam Surator Pangur Mama Manda Matirgati Matsarva Swapadambojo Radha Madana Modhano Divyad Vindaranya Kalpadrumadaha Shimad Ratnagara Simhasanastato Shimad Radha Shila Govinda Devo Prastali Bihi Sevyamano Smarami Shiman Rasa Rasa Ranbi Vansivata Tatastita Karsan Venuswanir Gopir Gopinatak Striyestuna Tapta Kanchana Gurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanustute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudeva Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Guru Pranama prayers ki jai Shri Brahma Samhita ki jai Ishwara Parama Krishna Sachitanandana Madhya Radhe Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam Chintamani Prakadasat Masukalpa Vriksha Laksha Vrite Susurabir Abhipalayantam Lakshmi Sahasra Satasam Brahma Sevyamanam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Venam Kvanandam Aravinda Dalayataksam Barhavatam Samasitam Buddhasundarangam Kandarpa Koti Kamaniya Vishesha Sobam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Chandra Kalasadvanamaya Vamsi Ratnam Gadam Pranaya Keli Kalabilasam Shamam Tribanga Lalita Niyata Prakasam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Yasya Sakalendriya Vrittimanti Pasyanti Panti Kalyanti Chiram Jaganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadujvala Vigrahasya Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Advaitam Achutam Anadim Ananta Rupam Adyam Purana Purusham Navayovanam Cha Vede Sudurlabham Adurlabham Atma Bhakto Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Pantastakoti Satavatsara Sampragamyo Vayoratapi Manaso Munipungamanam Sobhyastiyat Prapadasim Yavichintya Tatve Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Ekopya Sora Chaitam Jagaranda Kotim Yaschaktirasta Jagaranda Jayadanta Andantarasta Paramanu Chayantarasta Tam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yat Bhava Bhavita Diyo Manajasta Taiva Sampraptya Rupa Mahima Sanayana Bhusa Suktarya Meva Nigama Pratitaistuvanti Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Pratibhavita Vistabirya Eva Nichirupa Taya Kalabi Goloka Eva Nivasata Kilakna Bhuto Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Premanjanat Churita Bhakti Vilochanena Santak Sadev Dvayesu Vilokayanti Yam Shama Sundaram Achintya Guna Swarupam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ramadi Murti Sukala Niyamenatistan Anavataram Akarod Bhuvanesukintu Krishna Swayam Sambhavat Paramam Pumanyo Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yasya Prabha Prabhavato Jagadanda Koti Kotisva Sesa Vasudadi Vibhuti Menam Tad Brahma Niskalam Anantam Sesa Bhutam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Mayahi Yasya Jagananda Satani Sute Jayagunya Tad Vishaya Veda Vitaya Manam Sattva Valambi Parasatvam Visuddha Sattvam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasat Mataya Manasu Ya Prani Nam Patifalam Sparatam Upetya Vilayatena Bhuvanani Jaya Yajasram Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Goloka Namni Nijadamni Tale Chatasya Devi Mahesu Haridama Sutesu Tesu Te Te Prabhava Nichaya Vitascha Yena Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Shastista Te Pralayasana Rasaktireka Chayeva Yasya Bhuvanani Vivarti Durga Ichanu Rupam Apiyasya Chatesta Tesa Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Shiram Yata Dadi Vikara Visesa Yoga Sanjayate Nahitata Pritakasti Hetu Yasam Bhutam Apitata Samapaitikar Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Departureva Hita Santanam Abhyapetya Dipayate Vita Hetu Samanu Dharma Yastadvigeva Hicha Vishnu Taya Vibhati Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yakarna Narnava Jale Bhajatisma Yoga Nidram Ananta Jagadanta Saroma Kubaha Adhara Shaktim Avalamya Param Smamurtim Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yasyaika Nisvasita Kalamatavalamya Jivanti Loma Vilaja Jagadanda Nata Vishnu Mahansa Yasekala Visheso Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Baswanya Tasma Sakalesa Nijesu Teja Sriyam Kiyat Prakatayat Apitadvatatra Brahmaya Esa Jagadanda Vidana Karta Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yat Pada Palava Yugam Vinidaya Kumbha Twande Pranama Samayesa Ganadi Raja Vignan Vihantam Alamasya Jagatrayasya Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Agnir Mahika Ganamambu Marudisasya Kalas Tatatma Manasati Jagatrayani Yasmad Bhavanti Vibhavanti Vishanti Yamcha Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yaschak Suresa Savita Sakala Grahana Raja Samasta Suramurti Rasesa Teja Yasya Gaya Brahmati Sambrita Kala Chakro Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Dharmoto Papat Nichaya Shrutayastapamsi Pramadi Kita Patagava Dehastajiva Haya Data Matri Bhavam Prakadapa Bhava Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yastendra Gopa Matavendra Mahosva Karma Bandana Rupa Falabhajana Matanoti Karmani Nidahati Kintu Jabhakti Bhajam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yam Proda Kama Sahaja Pranayadi Biti Vatsalya Moha Guru Gaurav Savya Bhavai Sanchintya Tasya Sadrisintan Mahapurete Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Shriya Kanta Kanta Parama Purishta Kalpatarvo Juma Bunish Chintamani Ganama Itoyam Amritam Kataganam Natyam Gamanam Apivamsi Priyasaki Chidanandam Jyoti Param Apitad Aswatyam Apichasa Yatra Shiradibihi Shabati Shirabi Byashta Sumahan Nime Sardakyuva Rajitina Yatrepi Samaya Bajay Svitad Vipam Tamaham Ihakola Kamitiyam Vidantaste Santakshiti Viracharak Katipa Ishwara Parama Krishna Satchitananda Vigraha Nadirade Govindas Sarvakarana Karanam Shri Brahmasmita Ki Jai Shri Guru Vastaka Prayers Ki Jai. The spiritual master is receiving benediction from the ocean of mercy, just as a cloud pours water on a forest fire to extinguish it. So the spiritual master delivers the materially afflicted world by extinguishing the blazing fire of material existence. I, for my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such spiritual master, chanting the holy name, dancing, ecstasy, singing, and playing musical instruments. The spiritual master is always gladdened by the Sankirtan movement of Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Because he is relishing the mellows of pure devotion within his mind, sometimes his hair stands on end, he feels quivering in his body, and tears flow from his eyes like waves. I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always engaged in the temple worship of Shri Radha and Krishna. He also engages his disciples in such worship. They dress the deities in beautiful clothes and ornaments, clean their temple, and perform other similar worship of the Lord. I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such spiritual master. The spiritual master is always offering Krishna 4 kinds of delicious food, analyzes that which is licked, chewed, drunk, and sucked. When the spiritual master sees that the devotees are satisfied by eating Bhagavat Prasada, he is satisfied. I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet as such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always eager to hear and chant about the unlimited conjugal pastimes of Radhika and Madhava and their qualities, names, and forms. The spiritual master aspires to relish these at every moment. I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet as such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is very dear because he is expert at assisting the gopis who at different times make different tasteful arrangements for the perfection of Radha and Krishna's conjugal loving affairs within the groves of Vrindavana. I offer my most humble obeisance unto the lotus feet as such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is to be honored as much as the Supreme Lord because he's the most confidential servant to the Lord. This is acknowledged in all revealed scriptures and followed by all authorities. Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet as such a spiritual master who is a bona fide representative of Shri Hare Krishna. By the mercy of the spiritual master, one receives the benediction of Krishna. Without the grace of the spiritual master, one cannot make any advancement. Therefore, I should always remember and praise the spiritual master. At least 3 times a day, I should offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 1, text number 16. Swayam Dhanurdvari Nidaya Mayam Martu Purumar Masud Attadi Topi Saitam Atyubana Karnabanar Saitam Ayulbana Karnabanar Gatavyato Yad Urumana Yanaha. Swayam, he himself, Danu Dwari, bow on the door, Nidaya, keeping, Mayam, the external nature, Bhartu, brothers, Pura, from the palace, Marmasu, in the core of the heart, Tadita, being afflicted, Api, in spite of, Sa, he, Vidura, Itam, like this, Ati Ulbana, severely, Karna, ear, Banai, by the arrows, Gatavyataha, without being sorry, Ayat, excited, Uru, great, Mana, Yana, so thinking. Translation, thus being pierced by arrows through his ears and afflicted to the core of his heart, Vidura placed his bow on the door and quit his brother's palace. He was not sorry, for he considered the acts of the external energy to be supreme. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. A pure devotee of the Lord is never perturbed by an awkward position created by the external energy of the Lord. In Bhagavad Gita 3.27, it is said, Prakrite kriyamana nigunai karmani sarva sahankara vidbudatva kataham iti manyate. A conditioned soul is absorbed in material existence under the influence of different modes of external energy. Absorbed in the false ego, he thinks that he is doing everything by himself. The external energy of the Lord, the material nature, is fully under the control of the Supreme Lord, and the conditioned soul is fully under the grip of the external energy. Therefore, the conditioned soul is fully under the control of the law of the Lord. But due to illusion only, he thinks himself independent in his activities. Duryodhana was acting under such influence of the external energy, by which he would be vanquished at the ultimate end. He could not accept the sound advice of Vidura, but on the contrary, he insulted that great soul, who was the well-wisher of his whole family. Vidura could understand this because he was a pure devotee of the Lord. In spite of being very strongly insulted by Duryodhana's words, Vidura could see that Duryodhana, under the influence of Maya, the external energy, was making progress on the path toward his own ruination. He therefore considered the acts of the external energy to be supreme. Yet, he also saw how the internal energy of the Lord helped him in that particular situation. A devotee is always in a renounced temperament because the worldly attractions can never satisfy him. Vidura was never attracted by the royal palace of his brother. He was always ready to leave the place and devote himself completely to the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Now, he got the opportunity by the grace of Duryodhana, and instead of being sorry at the strong words of insult, he thanked him from within because it gave him the chance to live alone in a holy place and fully engaged in the devotional service of the Lord. The word gata vyataha, without being sorry, is significant here because Vidura was relieved from the tribulations which trouble every man entangled in material activities. He therefore thought that there was no need to defend his brother with his bow because his brother was meant for ruination. Thus he left the palace before Duryodhana could act. Maya, the supreme energy of the Lord, acted here both internally and externally. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thus, being pierced by arrows through his ears and afflicted to the core of his heart, Vidura placed his bow on the door and quit his brother's palace. He was not sorry, for he considered the acts of the external energy to be supreme. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Now this is extremely important purport, and there are many monumental realizations in this purport. If we understand this one purport, we can be liberated from the cycle of birth and death. But it's almost impossible to understand it as long as we are materially attached. So even if we hear it, we still will not understand it due to the material attachment. That's how dangerous material attachment is. But of course, hearing it is not bad. It's actually good to hear this, even though we may not understand it even after hearing it. But the fact that we hear it, there's a chance of understanding, or at least something. But there are many, many realizations here, very advanced realizations, that escape the understanding of most people. So that is how dangerous material attachment is. And as long as we're in the material world and we are trying to maintain things like family, business, this thing, that thing, we are going to have difficulty understanding this purport. But Prabhupada is revealing many very secret things in this purport that are realizations of highly advanced devotees, and Vidura is a highly advanced devotee. Although he's a dasi putra, in other words, we learned yesterday that oftentimes when Kshatriyas, through their chivalry, win the hand of beautiful ladies that are daughters of kings in other countries, then when the princess goes with him, also her attendants go with him. And the attendants are other ladies, and oftentimes the king will have children with those other ladies also. Those children are not considered full princes because they're born by the servants of the queen. However, that does not exclude them from being maintained by the king and having most of the privileges of a prince. So Vidura was one of those sons of a dasaput, of a dasi who came along with the king, and he therefore was not considered a full prince. However, he was maintained. But besides that, he was actually a pure devotee. And he and his brother Dhritarashtra was very affectionate to him, And Vidura was very attached to helping his brother understand transcendental knowledge. But because of the influence of Duryodhana and the desire of Dhritarashtra to see his sons as kings of the gigantic worldwide, let's say, kingdom. At that time, the seat of Bharat was the ruling authority of the whole earth. So Dhritarashtra, taking the place of his brother who died young, Pandava, was the guardian of the children of his brother until they were grown up, and then they would take over the kingdom. But Dhritarashtra wanted his sons to take over the kingdom. And his number one son, Duryodhana, although he was a highly efficient manager, but he was not a devotee. And in fact, he didn't really like Krishna, although he was somewhat respectful to Krishna, but it was just a superficial thing. And then later on, he showed that he didn't really like Krishna, and he didn't like Vidura, because Vidura was, in Duryodhana's estimation, giving wrong advice to his father and taking the side of the Pandavas. Well, that's not what Vidura did. He simply explained the truth to his brother. But unfortunately, the Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana both could not understand what Vidura was saying, although Bhisma Pitamaha did and many others did. Why didn't they understand? Because they had used up all their punya, all the benedictions of doing different types of services and doing different types of pujas and things like that. And they had used up most of their assets, and therefore they were incapable of understanding Krishna's words. Although Krishna came by himself and was speaking to them about the value of maintaining peace and harmony and giving back what actually belongs to the Pandavas, their rightful claim to the kingdom and to the administration of the kingdom. So we see that even though someone is seeing Krishna, even though someone is related to Krishna, even though someone has association with Krishna, if they have material desires, they cannot understand. See? And it's not as if, they didn't see Krishna. They were seeing him on a regular basis, right? He's related to them, but they could not understand. Why? Because they had material desires, and that blinds a person. And it can be anyone. It can be a devotee. As long as a devotee has material purposes in life, they will be blinded also, even though they hear something, even though they see something, right? They will still be blinded. So there's a very interesting letter. I mean, I'm going to go into the purport in a minute, but there's a very interesting letter that Prabhupada wrote to a lady called Arundhati on the 9th September 1969, and he says, "Our position is always predominated. If we remain in that position and properly use our small independence, then we remain happily eternally. But artificially, if we want to be independent and initiate and imitate the supreme enjoyer, Krishna, then it is delusion." Wow. And this is why Duryodhana and Dhritarashtra couldn't understand. Although they're seeing Krishna, they're associating with Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and they're hearing him, still they were not able to understand. And that's an amazing, amazing thing. It's shocking, actually. So, let's see here. Oh, yeah. 1 second. So the rest of that letter is very interesting. Let's go to that. Prabhupada says, but artificially, if we want to be independent and imitate the supreme enjoyer, then it is delusion. Material life means trying to imitate the supreme enjoyer, Krishna. And spiritual life means to remain in one's eternal position as enjoyed. This Hare Krishna mantra is addressed to the energy of the Lord and the Lord himself to keep the chanter in his eternal position of being enjoyed. The prayer meaning Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. The prayer is, my Lord, O the spiritual enjoyer of, O the spiritual energy of the Lord. So, O Krishna and O Radharani, kindly keep me engaged in your service. This is the meaning of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Okay, so then Prabhupada says, he says that when a person wants to be the enjoyer, and Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana wanted to be the enjoyers, they were in delusion. So as long as that enjoying tendency there in our hearts, we will not be able to understand the philosophy of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. And this is also illustrated in the seer and the seen. If we come to the temple to see, we are in the wrong frame of mind. We should come to the temple to be seen by Krishna. The seer is the enjoyer, and the seen is the enjoyed. So we should come to give pleasure to Krishna, not to derive pleasure, in a sense, not to want sense gratification. So if you come and see very beautiful deities, that can be like a person trying to engage in sense gratification. But if we come to offer service to the deity, and we know that the deity, or Krishna, is the supreme enjoyer, and we are the enjoyed, then we do not ask for anything from Krishna. We offer to Krishna. So this is the difference between an enjoyer and the enjoyed. So, coming back to the purport, it says, a pure devotee of the Lord is never perturbed by an awkward position created by the external energy of the Lord. Now you might think, oh, what does this have to do with Vidura? All of a sudden Prabhupada is talking about the external energy of the Lord. Well, because if we have the enjoying temperament, we come immediately under the control of Maya. Because wanting to emulate the enjoyer, and Krishna is the ultimate enjoyer, we fall into illusion. And in a deluded state of mind, we think that we are independent. And that's what the verse says that Prabhupada quotes, third chapter, 27th verse. Prakrite kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvasaha ahankara vimudatma kartaham iti manyate. What does that verse say? Let's take a look. It says, the spirit soul, bewildered by the influence of false ego, thinks himself the doer of activities that are in actuality carried out by the three modes of material nature. This is a very profound statement. In other words, if we accept what this says, that means that all of us, especially before we met Krishna consciousness, we're being totally controlled by the modes of material nature. Now, is that a fact? Many people say, no, what do you mean? I'm not completely independent. I'm not controlled by anyone. But if we go to the 14th chapter, verse number 19, it says, Nayam gunebhya kartaram yadadrastanu pasyati gunebhyascha param veti madbhavam so digachati. When one properly sees that in all activities no other performer is at work than these modes of nature, and he knows the Supreme Lord who is transcendental to all these modes, he attains my spiritual nature. In other words, he goes back to Godhead. Well, what is this saying? Well, basically it's saying the same thing that is said in this purport. A pure devotee of the Lord is never perturbed by an awkward position created by the external energy of the Lord. And then he quotes the verse, Prakriti Kriyamanani. And he says, a conditioned soul is absorbed in material existence under the influence of different modes of external energy. Absorbed in the false ego, he thinks that he is doing everything by himself. The external energy of the Lord, the material nature, is fully under the control of the Supreme Lord, and the conditioned soul is fully under the grip of the external energy. Therefore, the conditioned soul is fully under the control of the law of the Lord. Now, we have been studying what? Laws of nature, right? What does it say in the laws of nature that basically it's saying with this verse in Bhagavad Gita 14:19 and 14:20 and so 14:20 says Gunamitam atitya trin dehi deha samud bhavan janramityu jaradukar vimukto mritam asnute. When the embodied being is able to transcend these three modes associated with the material body, he can become free from birth, death, old age, and their distresses, and can enjoy nectar even in this life. And in the purport, Prabhupada says, how one can stay in a transcendental position even in this body in full Krishna consciousness is explained in this verse. The Sanskrit word dehi means embodied. Although one is within this material body, by his advancement in spiritual knowledge, he can be free from the influence of the modes of nature. He can enjoy the happiness of spiritual life even in this body, because after leaving this body, he is certainly going to the spiritual sky. But even in this body, he can enjoy spiritual happiness. In other words, devotional service in Krishna consciousness is the sign of liberation from material entanglement. And this will be explained in the 18th chapter. When one is freed from the influence of the modes of material nature, he enters into devotional service. Now, if we compare that to 7th chapter, verse number 13. Chibir gunamayer bhaver eve sarvam idam jagat mohita nabijananti mam ebya param avyayam. Deluded by the three modes, goodness, passion, and ignorance, the whole world does not know me, who am above the modes and inexhaustible. So here it is, the truth. All of us are controlled by the modes of material nature. We are not independent. As long as we have the enjoying tendency, as long as we're attracted to something in the material world, we are totally under the control of the modes of material nature. It's only when we lose that attraction for sense gratification and the material world that Krishna blesses us with transcendental knowledge, and we can then be free of the influence of the modes of material nature and engage fully in devotional service. This is not understood by the whole world. And very few devotees actually understand it. And therefore, we have a chance to understand it if we regularly come to the class and hear the words of Krishna and the acharyas. And if we don't regularly come, even though we've heard this, it'll be blurred in our minds. And we end up no different than the karmis, in a sense, because the karmis are completely attracted, but even being partially attracted is enough to keep us in illusion. That's how serious this Krishna consciousness is. That's why Lord Chaitanya wanted us to constantly chant Hare Krishna and to be constantly in the association of good devotees and to constantly be hearing Stanis tatak Shrutikinan Tanamam. This verse that Brahma speaks, that just stay in your position and go on hearing on a regular basis Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. That's what's recommended if you want to be Krishna conscious. Okay, so we have these two verses in the 14th chapter, and now the verse in the 3rd chapter, 27th verse, and then the verse in the 7th chapter, 13th verse, that gives us a good perspective on understanding what's being said in this purport. So therefore it says, therefore the conditioned soul is fully under the control of the law of the Lord, or the laws of nature, or Dharma. Dharma, Sanatana Dharma, laws of material nature, they are the same thing. And Sanatana Dharma, or the laws of God, and the laws of material nature are also laws of God. They're synonymous, right? Okay, so, but due to illusion only, he thinks himself independent in his activities. Duryodhana was acting under the influence of the external nature, meaning Duryodhana was under the influence of the three modes of material nature, by which he would be vanquished at the ultimate end. That means that he's going to lose. He's a loser. And anybody who's controlled by the modes of material nature is a loser, no matter how much money they have or how many properties they have, how much sense gratification they have. They are a loser, right? Just like someone asked me yesterday, he said, my son wants to be an IT guy, and therefore he wants to go to this university on the other side of the United States, in Massachusetts. But he was accepted to 3 schools. And the one school here in the Seattle area, close to where we live, has accepted him in the engineering major. But even there, he can take IT as a secondary major, right? So he said, what should I do? I said, well, first of all, you're going to send him all the way to Massachusetts. It's going to cost you $60,000 a year, at least, maybe even more. But if you send him to a school that's right near you, he can stay at home and go to school and go there, and he'll get the same education. It doesn't matter that they're giving him engineering as the first, course, and then IT is the second course. When he graduates, then he can take advanced course and get his master's degree in IT. So it's going to be the same education, whether he goes to Northwestern University or whether he goes to the Technical University here in Seattle. I said, so therefore keep him here. Don't send him there. He's going to be in bad association. He's going to be far away from you. It's going to cost you a lot of money. And if he goes here, it's going to cost a lot less money. He can be at home. You can keep your eye on him. You can see, if he's being changed by bad association or not, right? But you send him so far away, you don't know what's going to happen to him, right? So he said, okay. You see how every day we're faced with decisions that can have vast influence on our kids. And unless we're very careful, we just go along with the flow, you're going to lose your kid. I mean, he'll always be your kid, but he could be completely under the influence of all kinds of nasty people, right? And they're not just the teachers; they're the other students also, So, and it's going to cost a lot of money. You're going to pay so much money, and you lose the kid. It doesn't make sense, does it? And he wants to go into IT. Why does he want to go into IT? Why does he want to be a full-time devotee? Or why doesn't he go into agriculture, right? Well, because all the kids, they talk to each other and they convince each other that they have to go into IT to make a lot of money. That's why. And that is a material desire, a very strong material desire, right? So we have to be careful what we're doing and the decisions that we're making in our life, because we can be carried away by material desires, and then we're not actually giving Krishna consciousness to our kids, because we're already carried away by material desires, right? So this purport is extremely important. And if we understand what's being said in this purport, we can, as it says here, how can one stay in the transcendental position even in this body in full Krishna consciousness is explained in this verse. That's 14th chapter, 20th verse, right? And it's explained in this verse also, Canto 3, chapter 1, verse 16. The Sanskrit word dehi means embodied. Although one is within this material body, by his advancement in spiritual knowledge, he can be free from the influence of the modes of nature. Now, how do you become advanced in spiritual knowledge? You attend the class every day, and you hear very carefully, and you do your homework, and then you go out and face the world, right? And you get this inoculation every day, because if we don't do that, it's very easily that we'll be distracted, because the whole world out there is in Maya, the whole world, right? Under the control of the modes of material nature. Everyone's walking around thinking they're independent, but actually they're being controlled. And if we fall into the same thing, then we won't be able to avoid or help anybody become Krishna conscious. But we are not ourselves is Krishna conscious if we're acting in a state of illusion. Like Duryodhana and like Dhritarashtra, both of them are seeing Krishna. They're talking to him. He's a relative, and they can't understand him at all. It doesn't mean anything that you can see Krishna, just like we come and see the deities, right? That doesn't mean anything if we have the enjoying tendency in our heart. Unfortunately. That's why we have to come to class to learn, to get this transcendental knowledge. Although one is within the material body, by his advancement in spiritual knowledge, he can be free from the influence of the modes of nature. He can enjoy the happiness of spiritual life even in this body, because after leaving this body, he is certainly going to the spiritual sky. But even in this body, he can enjoy spiritual happiness. Boy, Prabhupada's repeating it twice, right? In other words, devotional service in Krishna consciousness is the sign of liberation from material entanglement. And this will be explained in the 18th chapter. When one is freed from the influence of the modes of material nature, he enters into devotional service. So why don't our kids enter seriously into devotional service? You tell me. You tell me. Prabhu, you know why? What is the education? What is actually the education? Let's talk about that a second. What do kids learn from that education? What values do they get? IT, money, sense gratification. That's what they're learning by that education. That's why they all want to go into IT. Not one of them wants to be a devotee. Yeah, they'll play around with it a little bit, but they don't take it seriously. They take IT very seriously. You see? That's our failure. We're not able to communicate this culture to them. Why? Because we have the tendency also. Now, I'm not saying quit IT right now. All I'm saying is you must come to class on a regular basis to understand what's happening out there. Otherwise, we're like sleepwalkers. We go out there and we just go with the flow. And we will, even though we, here's an example. Two people are seeing Krishna. He's a relative. They're hearing him talk. He's preaching to them, and they don't understand. Duryodhana and Dhritarashtra. Now, we should ask the question, why is this? Well, it was explained in the previous verse. They have exhausted all their punya. And they're in bad association. Duryodhana is associating with Sakuni and with Karna, and both of them are enablers. They're saying, yes, we don't need Krishna. Yes, we'll defeat them on the battle of Kurukshetra. Look at our army. That's bad association, right? And what is Vidura trying to do? He's trying to explain to his brother, look, don't think that you're going to beat the Pandavas. You're going to lose because Krishna is on their side. He's not on your side. You had a chance to get him on your side, but Duryodhana had the chance to have Krishna, but he refused. He wanted Krishna's army. He was calculating in a materialistic way. And Vidura is explaining that to his brother, and his brother can't understand. Right? Krishna comes to Duryodhana and Dhritarashtra and tries to convince them, don't start this war. And he explains the value of peace, and they don't understand. You see how serious it is? So it says here, Duryodhana was acting under the influence of the external energy. That means he's completely controlled by the modes of material nature, right? By which he would be vanquished at the ultimate end. In other words, it's guaranteed he's going to lose. Guaranteed. Vidura is saying it, and Krishna is also saying it, right? He could not accept the sound advice of Vidura, but on the contrary, he insulted the great soul, who was the well-wisher of his whole family. Vidura could understand this because he was a pure devotee of the Lord. In spite of being very strongly insulted by Duryodhana's words, Vidura could see that Duryodhana, under the influence of Maya means sense gratification, it means under the influence of the modes of material nature, that's all synonymous. He was under the influence of Maya, the external energy, was making progress on the path toward his ruination. He's progressing towards ruination. He's progressing towards failure, towards losing, towards being killed. Right? Vidura can understand it. It's like if you see a man sitting on the branch of a tree sawing it off, you know what's going to happen. He's going to fall down, maybe break his arm. Right? Well, Vidura could see, because Duryodhana could not understand what he was saying. He could understand. He saw this guy's completely in illusion. He's going toward his death. There's nothing I can do about it. I just explained it to him. He didn't understand one word. Krishna comes and explains to him. He doesn't understand one word. It doesn't mean anything that you have direct association with Krishna if that enjoying tendency there is in the heart. It'll stop you from understanding. See? And then you're completely controlled by the modes of material nature. This is serious stuff. And it's pertinent to us today. Just as it was pertinent to Vidura 5,000 years ago. And then it says, he therefore considered the acts of the external energy to be supreme. Yet he also saw how the internal energy of the Lord helped Vidura, in that particular situation. So he's seeing how the external energy has complete control. Maya has complete control of Duryodhana. But then he's also saying how Krishna is protecting him, Vidura. A devotee is always in a renounced temperament because the worldly attractions can never satisfy him. Vidura was never attracted by the royal palace of his brother. He was always ready to leave the place and devote himself completely to the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Now he got the opportunity by the grace of Duryodhana. Just look at what he's saying here. This is amazing. You can't get this knowledge from anyone else. The only Prabhupada and the Acharyas and Krishna that can explain such things. This is amazing. He says, now he got the opportunity by the grace of Duryodhana, and instead of being sorry at the strong words of insult, he thanked Duryodhana from within. This is a huge point. I've always told people, whenever you get insulted, you should feel happy on the inside. Let's say your wife insults you, or let's say your husband insults you and said, "Oh, your family, they're low-class people. Huh? My family's a good family. Your family sucks." Now, a lot of people get upset. They feel like they want to kill their partner or whatever. But actually, you should be very happy because they're giving you a reason to lose your desire for sense gratification and completely dedicate yourself to Krishna consciousness. See? So you don't get angry at them, but you don't say you're happy, because if you say you're happy, they'll get angrier. You just thank them internally, like Vidura is doing. You see? This is an amazing purport. You can't get this anywhere else. No one will explain like this. It's only in Vaishnavism, pure Vaishnavism, not phony Vaishnavism, pure Vaishnavism. So he's thanking him internally. He's thanking Duryodhana. He's not saying, "Oh, you're a nasty guy. You know, I curse you. You insulted." No. He's thanking him. He's accepting him like a guru. You see? Now he got the opportunity by the grace of Duryodhana, and instead of being sorry at the strong words of insult, he thanked him from within because it gave him the chance to live alone in a holy place and fully engaged in the devotional service of the Lord. The word gata vyataha, without being sorry, is significant here because Vidura was relieved from the tribulations which trouble every man entangled in material activities. Wow, is that a fact? Are we entangled and full of tribulations, problems, because of our material activities of maintenance? Yes. Anytime there's maintenance, there's trouble. See, just like we're trying to fix the elevator. You know how much it costs to fix an elevator? It's very expensive because the company, no one like you can, like Janavatsal has the ability to stop the elevator by himself, but you're not allowed to do it. You can go to jail if you do that. You have to pay $1,500 for someone to come and stop the elevator. And if they do the work, it'll cost another $5,000 to $10,000. The work that Janavatsal is doing right now. This whole thing about an elevator is very, very costly. Did you know that? You know how much they were going to charge us to do that work? I mean, we have to pay the $1,500. You can't escape that. You know how much they were going to charge? They were going to charge us like $15,000 to $20,000 to do what John Vatsal is doing right now. No, it's that because the well goes down, right? We've always had this problem of water seeping in from the outside, even though there's concrete, but water keeps seeping in. Every time it comes in, you have to stop the elevator, call the company, they have to come, they stop the elevator and they have to do the work. It's extremely expensive every time they do that, right? So we were lucky, we convinced them, look, we'll do the work, but you stop the elevator, we'll pay you. You stop the elevator, we'll do the work. Usually they don't agree, but now they agreed because they've done it. They've come several times to do that work. Right? They have the same problem, even worse, in Bellevue. Right, and there was a serious leakage into the well of the elevator. So you see, these are the problems of maintenance. We're all faced with these problems. Something goes wrong with your car. Something breaks in the house. There's a problem at work. This thing, that thing. We're in the material energy, and we have to deal with all these problems. It's a headache, right? If there's one problem after another, it's just like with our trucks. The generator breaks. And then someone turned off the switch for the generator, and it took us a week to figure out why it wouldn't start. We thought we had to take it back and get it serviced again, right? You see, so all these things are going on all the time because of maintenance in the material world, or activities in the material world. So Vidura is saying, the word gatavyata, without being sorry, is significant here, because Vidura was relieved from the tribulations which trouble every man entangled in material activities. There it is. He therefore thought that there was no need to defend his brother with his bow, because his brother was meant for ruination. He realized they're not listening. I tried my best. I gave it everything I could. They're not listening. So therefore, thus he left the palace before Duryodhana could act. Duryodhana was going to act. What was he going to do? He wanted to take everything away from Vidura. He wanted to beat him up and throw him out. Right? There were 5 things. Duryodhana not only attacked Vidura's birth, but also called him an infidel, because he seemed to support the cause of Yudhisthira, whom Duryodhana considered his enemy. He desired that Vidura be immediately put out of the palace and deprived of all his possessions. If possible, he would have liked him caned, beaten up, until he was left with nothing but his breath. He charged that Vidura was a spy of the Pandavas because he advised King Dhritarashtra in their favor. Such is the situation of palace life and the intricacies of diplomacy, that a faultless person like Vidura could be charged with something abominable and punished. Vidura was struck with wonder at such unexpected behavior from his nephew, Duryodhana, and before anything actually happened, he decided to leave the palace for good. He realized the same thing happened to Vibhishan. The same thing happened to Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. When both of them saw that their relative, or their brother, or their father, or their people they were living with, have gone crazy, and just would not listen to good advice, they were told to leave and just take up spiritual life completely and renounce everything. Because his brother was meant for ruination. Thus he left the palace before Duryodhana could act. Maya, the supreme energy of the Lord, acted here both internally and externally. Internally, Maya gave Vidura a chance to leave and take up spiritual life completely. And externally, Maya put Duryodhana and Dhritarashtra in so much illusion that they said no to Krishna also. And the war happened, and they lost everything. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Premanandi Haribol. Are there any questions? Yes.
You
Yeah, why don't you say that in the microphone? It's a good question.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So you have mentioned that Duryodhana, even though he is a close relative of Krishna, because of the enjoying tendency, he could not listen to Krishna whatever he said. But on the other side, even Bhishma, doesn't have any enjoying tendency. He knows that Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead, but because of strict vow, he played from the Duryodhana side. Why he could not take the decision that time?
Because he was being maintained by Duryodhana and Dhritarashtra. And therefore, not only had his vow, the vow was to always protect the Kurus, but also he was being maintained by them, and he was eating their food. So he was not able to make that decision. But he knew that he was going to be killed. He knew that they were going to lose. He knew it. But he just did his duty. And but he went back to Godhead, right?
Is it because he did his duties too?
No, it was because he was eating their food.
No, he went back to Godhead because he did his duty right.
No, because he recognized who Krishna was, and he knew that what Duryodhana was doing was wrong. But he had made a vow, so he couldn't break his vow. It's a special situation. Right. But he was not an ordinary man. He was a deva, and he understood what was going on. But but because Duryodhana and Dhritarashtra were both completely in illusion, there was no way to convince them. So they just went along. He just went along with it, but he knew what was going to happen. And especially when Arjuna came to get the 5 arrows from Duryodhana, I mean, he knew that's Krishna right there, acting, and they were doomed. They were all gonna die. So, but he was able, once his body was devoid of all blood, he spoke the Raja Dharma to Yudhisthira, and he gave him also the Vishnu Sahasranam Sutram, because now all that influence of the food that he ate with Duryodhana had gone away from his body. He was just bones. But he was still alive. You see?
Yeah, I have another question, Maharaj. Since we know that the association of the devotees will help progress in the spiritual life, so Duryodhana is in the association of Krishna, but still why that did not allow Duryodhana to change his mind?
Because he had the enjoying tendency in his heart. He couldn't get rid of it. And because of that, he wasn't able to understand anything that was being said. And Dhritarashtra also, because he had one material desire. This is in the 7th canto. I'll show you tomorrow. One material desire is enough to keep you from ever becoming Krishna conscious. One material desire. What if you have many material desires? You see, that's why I read this letter from Prabhupada to Arundhati. It's very important. Just one paragraph, but it's very important, where he says, material life means trying to imitate the enjoyer, Krishna. And spiritual life means to remain in one's eternal position as the enjoyed. So in school, they're teaching the kids to be enjoyers. Here, we're trying to teach people to be enjoyed. And that's what he says. This Hare Krishna mantra is addressed to the energy of the Lord, meaning Radharani, and the Lord himself, to keep the chanter in his eternal position of being enjoyed. The prayer is, my dear Lord Krishna, and oh, the spiritual energy of the Lord Radharani, kindly keep me engaged in your service. That's the meaning of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. So, do your kids understand that? Do you understand it? All right, now you've heard it. Now you can understand what Krishna consciousness is about. We are the enjoyed. We are not the enjoyer. Out there, they're teaching everyone, be the enjoyer, be the enjoyer. You know, buy this. You need this thing. You have to do this. You have to do that. You see? There's something else I wanted to get to, but we'll keep it for tomorrow. You're going to be shocked by this. Yeah.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Okay?
Thank you.
Oh.
I think maybe the definition of association is probably very important because there was physical association between Duryodhana and Krishna.
Yes.
It was never, he never listened to. Because, I mean, for example, when we come here, there is a physically we're here, and I mean, we also used to come to the temple in the past. Like there was that physical association,
Yeah.
but there was never the association of the thoughts.
Well, it takes time, Prabhu. It takes time, right? I've been reading Bhagavad Gita like 53 years. I still don't understand it, right? Those two verses I quoted, in the 14th chapter, they're very profound verses. When one properly sees that in all activities, no other performer is at work than these modes of nature, and he knows the Supreme Lord, who is transcendental to all these modes, he attains my spiritual nature. This is a very profound verse. But, do we understand it? Understanding is much different than simply reading something. Yeah.
So Maharaj, there is an online question. Question is, so the law of nature doesn't create hindrance in Krishna consciousness if we have good amount of punya karma from our previous life? Question mark. It says good paravardha, that word I don't know.
What?
There is, in the bracket the mention is like from our previous life means good prarabdha. Yeah,
Parabdha.
Prarabdha. Yeah. So question is, the law of nature doesn't create hindrance in Krishna consciousness if we have good amount of punya karma from our previous life. That's the question.
Well, what we need is transcendental knowledge. Punya karma may be helpful for getting that knowledge, but you need transcendental knowledge, right? You need to understand these verses of Bhagavad Gita, and you need to understand this purport that we read today. Then you know what the problem is. Now, no one else has to tell you you're in Maya. You know if you're in Maya or not now, because you know, am I the enjoyer or am I the enjoyed? Right? It breaks down to that. Now, how to be the enjoyed? You have to always be engaged in devotional service. How to be the enjoyer? You have to be always engaged in material activities to make more and more money and spend it. Shopping, cars and houses and boats and this thing and that thing, right? So the devotee downsizes all that stuff and lives minimally to have the time and not be overwhelmed by maintenance of things, right? Now, you can't do it, until you're basically free of material obligations, right? But you can develop this knowledge all along and to save you from going overboard and into being the enjoyer, right? So there's great hope if we regularly listen. If we don't regularly listen, we just sort of float, go with the flow with everybody else. Someone says, "Oh, I'm going to buy this car." Oh, he's going to buy that car. Maybe I should buy that car also. You say, it's unending, right? Because there's so much advertisement, and when you get a lot of money, you think, oh well, I'm going to now get that car, and I'll get a better car than that guy. So it's the pressure is there on us. The outside pressure is huge. So imagine, we're trying to understand, imagine your kids. They're out there, 8 hours a day, being being attacked by this concept of being the enjoyer. It's very hard for them. Right? It's almost impossible to escape it. Therefore, we have to have strong hearing and chanting, and service. Okay, we'll stop there. It's a big subject.
And the topic that you have shared about the getting blinded by the material desire, it's like if I look back, I can see like how many decisions what I did sometimes I was blinded by the material desire and I did it.
All of us are like that.
Like having material desire is always, but sometimes I was like blinded. Like I just, in normal circumstances, I would not do it. Like.
Well, that's the mercy of Prabhupada. Like, look at everything is written here. It's just amazing. You're not going to hear this anywhere else. And tomorrow I'm going to give you an example. It's going to blow your mind. So we'll wait till tomorrow. Haribol. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Sorry.
Sri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma
Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma
Bandhamoi Savadhana Mate Jahara prasade bhai he bhavaturiya jai
Jahara prasade bhai he bhavaturiya jai
Krishna prapti hoy jahan hoy de Padma Vakya Chide de Goriya Gya Harna Gori Ho Mane Asha Charane rati aise uttama gati
Shri Guru Charane rati aise uttama gati
Je prasade pure sarva चक्षुदान दिलो जे जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से ओ चक्षुदान दिलो जे जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशितो प्रेमा भक्ति जहाँ हो दे अविद्या विनाश जाते प्रेमा भक्ति जहाँ हो दे अविद्या विनाश जाते वेदेगा जहाँ राचारी दो श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु अधम जनर बंधु श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु अधम जनर बंधु लोकना लोके राजीवाना हाँ प्रभु को रो दो या दे हो मोरे पाद छाया प्रभु को रो दो या दे हो मोरे पाद छाया हाँ प्रभु को रो दो या दे हो मोरे पाद छाया प्रभु को रो दो या दे हो मोरे पाद छाया ये बेजास घुस त्रिभुवाना प्रभुपाद पतित पवना जय प्रभुपद जय प्रभुपद जय प्रभुपद जय प्रभुपद जय गुरुदेवा 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 नाम ओम विष्णुपदाय कृष्ण प्रस्थाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी निधि नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशधारिणे नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशधारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा
Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada.
Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada.
Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva.
Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva.
Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol.
Jai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Pararajikachasta Tarasatara Shri Shimad His Divine Grace Sri Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Anantakoti Vaishnava Vinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Sakaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Dvaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudeva Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sam Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Shri Mayapura Dham Ki Jai Shri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai Tulasi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Ganga Maya Ki Jai Jamuna Maya Ki Jai Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Nitai Gaura Premananda. All glories to the assembled. All glories to the assembled. All glories to the assembled. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Guranga. Glories to Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Namo Namaste. The lotus feet of our spiritual master, the only way by which we can attain the pure devotional service. I bow down to his lotus feet with great awe and reverence. By his grace, one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is the perfection and fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. From him, ecstatic prema emanates. By him, ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual master is the ocean of mercy, the friend of the poor, and Lord and master of devotees. O Master, be merciful unto us. Give us the shade of your lotus feet. Your favorite square thread over the three worlds. We take shelter of your lotus feet. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. What does it say? It says, he opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. There it is right there. That's what we're trying to do. Fill our heart with transcendental knowledge and open our darkened eyes. Hari Bol.
Thank you.
Hari Bol. Oh, nice. Well, let's just.
Yeah, we'll finish.